When it comes to the history of theology, we've basically been told one entire big fat lie about 19th century Catholic theology. What the Nouvelle Theologie have told us is that before the Second Vatican Council, there was ahistorical scholasticism that didn't really care about the fathers and cared more so about logic chopping. This just isn't the case. When we actually look into 19th century theology, we actually see that the opposite is the case. In this video, I wanted to introduce to you one of the greatest theologians of the 19th century, Joseph Matthias Scheeben. Scheeben was part of a group of theologians called the Collegio Romano theologians. These theologians were known for combining together the history of scholastic theology in the medieval and Baroque eras and the historical research of the 19th century. This is what makes this era of theology probably one of the most fruitful in the entire era of the church. Other famous representatives of the school include Cardinal Giovanni Perrone and Cardinal Johannes Baptist Franzlin. But in this video, we're going to focus on Scheeben, because Scheeben wrote a famous handbook of dogmatic theology. In this handbook, he draws very much from the Eastern Fathers. So his section on the Filioque is one of the best that I've ever read. In it, after going through the history of the controversy and the various different arguments that are classically given, such as by Petavius, he goes on to give 9 different ways in which denying the Filioque actually destroys and tears apart the Trinity, grouping these into 3 different categories. First, that denying it tears apart and splits the Trinity. Second, that denying it confuses and destroys the unity of the Trinity. Third, that denying it mutilates the Trinity. He describes the first category as, quote, the heresy of the schism tears apart and splits the Trinity one by one. The first way under this that he gives is, quote, it tears apart the unity of the immediate and direct union of the Holy Ghost with the Son, since this can lie only in the relation of origin, and at the same time makes the Holy Ghost no longer spirit of the Son, in particular, not the Son's own spirit. In Catholic theology, since the Spirit proceeds from the Son, there is an immediate relationship between the Spirit and the Son, not merely by essence, but also by origination. On the other hand, for the Photians, they do not have this immediate connection between the Son and the Spirit, thus replacing the union by origin and by procession that the Catholics posit, and that are posited by the Church Fathers, with a lesser unity, whether merely by essence or also by communication of energies. The second way that he gives is, quote, it breaks up the unity of the perfect communion between Father and Son, by dint of which the Son must have everything in common with the Father except fatherhood. Not only does this tear apart the union between the Son and the Spirit, it also tears apart the union between the Father and the Son. Because in Catholic theology, the Father and the Son are united in the fact that they are one principle of the Spirit. Because by the begetting of the Son, the Father has communicated the power of spiration to the Son. But for the Photians, there is not this aspect of unity between the Father and the Son, but only unity that follows from the begetting of the Son. The third way he gives is that, quote, it splits the indivisible unity of the Father in himself, in that his character of spirator, or proboleus, no longer appears to be contained in his fatherhood and founded thereon, but rather suddenly standing alongside his fatherhood, must constitute a person just like the latter does, and therefore 2 persons are made out of the Father. For the Photians, the Father's role as Father and the Father's role as spirator of the Spirit are completely disconnected from one another. The one is not founded upon the other or contained in the other. The only relation that they have to one another is that they happen to be possessed by the same person. On the other hand, for Catholics, there's an intimate relationship between these 2 processions in the Father. For the Father gives the power of spiration to the Son in the begetting of the Son, thus retaining a full unity between these 2 processions in the person of the Father. Therefore, the Photians not only split the Son and the Spirit, but also the Son and the Father, and even the Father himself. Now, Scheeben describes the second category as, quote, the heresy of the schism confuses and destroys the unity of the Trinity as a whole, end quote. The first way he gives is, quote, it annihilates the fixed order and sequence by virtue of which the 3 persons form a continuous golden chain. For Catholics, the Trinity forms a continuous golden chain, the Father begetting the Son, and then the Father and the Son spirating the Spirit. And this golden chain is actually something frequently reflected in patristic analogies. An example of this can be the classical analogy between the root, the branch, and the fruit. Under this aspect, we can see that the Catholic view not only has immediate union and order between the persons individually, but also the Trinity as a whole has a complete order between the first, second, and third persons. On the other hand, the Photian view really only has 1 first person, then 2 second persons, without any sort of order between the second and the third person in the processions. Thus, the Photian view can be viewed as forming some sort of right angle with the Father on top and then the two processions down the side next to each other, without any sort of order between them. The second way that he gives is, quote, it destroys the organic union of the two Trinitarian processions, as it was so strongly emphasized precisely by the Greek Fathers, whereby they are interdependent and mesh, one proceeding from the other and one aimed at the other. In the Catholic view, there is a mutual dependence between the two processions. The begetting of the Son contains the spiration of the Spirit, since the power to spirate is given to the Son in the begetting of the Son. And then the begetting of the Son is for the sake of the spiration of the Spirit. On the other hand, in the Photian view, there is no interdependence between the two processions. Rather, they simply stand next to each other, not forming that golden chain that we see in Catholic Trinitarian theology. The third way he gives is, quote, above all, it destroys the comprehensive concatenation of the divine persons, by virtue of which every single one, being immediately related to the two others, each in a particular way forms a connecting link for the two others. Thus, the Greek Fathers emphasize the middle position of the Son between the Father and the Holy Ghost, in that the Son, by proceeding from the Father, causes the Holy Ghost to proceed from himself. And thus, through him, the Father enters into relation to the Holy Ghost, and the Holy Ghost is united with the Father through him. The Latin Fathers, in contrast, emphasize chiefly that the Holy Ghost, as the outpouring of their mutual love, is the connecting link or the formal bond, kiss, or embrace between the Father and the Son. End quote. This one is a bit harder to understand, so I will make it easy as I can. The point is that in the Catholic view, there is both union and there is also immediate relation. For Catholics, there's immediate relation between the Father and the Son, and then the Father and the Spirit, and also the Son and the Father and the Son and the Spirit, and the Spirit and the Father and the Spirit and the Son. And also, the Son is the union between the Father and the Spirit, and the Spirit is the union between the Father and the Son. In order to make this easier, I'll split this into a number of propositions. First, the Father is immediately related to the Son in that he begets him, and the Spirit in that he spirates him. Second, the Son is immediately related to the Father in that he is begotten of him, and the Spirit in that he spirates him. Third, the Spirit is immediately related to the Father in that he proceeds from him, and the Son in that he proceeds from him. Yet, we already went over these 3 points above. Rather, the important part is that the Father is the union of the Son and the Spirit, the Son the union of the Father and the Spirit, and the Spirit the union of the Father and the Son. First, the Father is the unity of the Spirit and the Son, since he is their ultimate fount, source, and principle, what the Greek Fathers call the atia, or cause. Second, the Son is the unity of the Father and the Spirit, in that it is by or through the Son that the Father spirates the Spirit, in giving him the spirit of power. This is why the Greek Fathers refer to the Son as the medium or means whereby the Father spirates the Spirit. This is also why they generally use the language of through. Third, the Spirit is the unity of the Father and the Son, in that they come together to spirate him, and he is the fruit of their union. This is something more emphasized in the Augustinian tradition. For the Photians, while the Father certainly can be said to be the union of the Spirit and the Son certainly can't be the union of the Father and the Spirit, nor the Spirit the union of the Father and the Son. He describes the third category as, quote, the heresy of the schism mutilates the Trinity one by one and as a whole. The first way, in relation to the Father, is that, quote, the Father is perfect Father only when he can and does give the Son, through begetting, everything that he himself possesses, and consequently gives him also all the fruitfulness that is compatible with the hypostatic character of the Son. In the Catholic view, the Father is a most perfect Father because he gives everything that he can to the Son. Now, obviously, paternity is something that he can't give, since something cannot beget itself. But in the Photian view, the Father holds something back from the Son that he could give to the Son, that is, the power to spirate the Spirit. The second way, in relation to the Son, is that, quote, the Son is a perfect Son only when he is similar and equal to the Father in the spiration also, and when in particular the Spirit of the Father is his Spirit too, precisely by dint of his generation from the Father, and is not communicated to him only through the second act of the Father. End quote. This follows naturally from the relationship between a father and the son. A son is like his father and has some sort of similarity to his father. Now, the Father is Father because he is the principle of the Son. Therefore, if the Son is like the Father, the Son also will be principle of another person. On the other hand, in the Photian view, the Son is like the Father only because the Son shares the same essence as the Father. Thus, there is no more reason why the Son is called the Son than the Spirit is called the Son, since they both share the same essence with the Father. The third way in relation to the Spirit is that, quote, the Holy Ghost, however, is conceivable not only as perfect Spirit, but also generally as a particular person, only because the Son is related to him as his principle. For one, it is an axiom already adopted by the Church Fathers that all personal distinctions in God are only established through origins and also can be asserted only between principle and product. Two, in God, no distinction is conceivable that did not at the same time include the most intimate, most immediate union of those who are distinguished. And three, indeed, since according to the Greek Fathers, the Father brings forth the Holy Ghost only through the Son, not alongside the Son, the Holy Ghost would not emerge from the Son, but rather would remain one with him, if the Son did not cause him to proceed from him. End quote. Let's unpack this last reason one by one. First, personal distinction in the Godhead flows from origin. Thus, without a relationship of origin between the Spirit and the Son, there would be no personal distinction. To read more about this, check out St. Thomas's Summa Prima Pars, question 36, article 2. On the other hand, in the Orthodox view, there would have to be a personal distinction between the Son and the Spirit that does not depend upon origin, upon their procession, but upon something completely different. Second, in God, anytime there is distinction, there's also united to this distinction a most intimate union. Thus, it is only by a procession which unites Father and Son that there is a distinction between Father and Son. Yet, in the Photian view, there's a distinction that occurs, that is, a distinction between the Son and Spirit, which does not follow this pattern of maximal unity, since there is no immediate union between the Son and the Spirit. Third, on the other hand, since personal distinction flows from origin, where one tries to make it without such origination, the distinction completely collapses. There's actually an analogy in the Godhead for what would happen. The Father has two relations, one to the Son and the other to the Spirit, yet due to the fact that there is no opposition between these relations by procession, there's still only one person of the Father. If the Son and the Spirit were both related to the Father and not opposed to each other, they would collapse into one person, just as the Father is one person. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you really enjoyed it and would like to support me, please go to patreon.com/militanthomist and become a patron. Each week, I have a bonus stream where I talk about a random topic that I usually wouldn't cover in public. Anyways, as always, God bless.